Imagine walking down a quiet street in Milwaukee, 1980s America. The city seems ordinary, the neighbors smiling, life going on as usual. But behind one unassuming apartment door, a nightmare is quietly unfolding. A young man lives next door, or maybe even across the hall, who hides a darkness no one could imagine. By day, he is polite, unnoticed, ordinary. By night, he preys on those society often overlooks. His crimes are calculated, chilling, and nearly invisible. For over a decade, he walks among the city, a smiling stranger, while unspeakable horrors occur behind closed doors. It began in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a city that seemed ordinary, bustling with life, unprepared for the darkness that would quietly thrive in its shadows. Jeffrey Dahmer, born in 1960, was not born monstrous, yet the seed of darkness had been quietly planted. His childhood was marked by neglect, emotional distance, and isolation. His father was often absent, absorbed in work and personal struggles, while his mother battled her own demons. From an early age, Jeffrey became fascinated with death, dissection, and the macabre. He would collect roadkill, dissect small animals, and observe the mechanics of life and death. This fascination was private, hidden from family and friends, a secret growing quietly in the corners of his mind. By the time he entered adolescence, the world outside offered little solace. He struggled to make friends, awkward and shy, his gaze often lingering on things most would avoid. Teachers noticed his quiet demeanor, but no one could have guessed what lay beneath. By high school, he was a loner, spending hours alone, absorbed in his obsessions. The first signs of darker impulses began to surface: compulsive behaviors, a morbid curiosity, and a fascination with control over life and death. After graduating, Dahmer's compulsions escalated. In 1978, at 18, he committed his first murder. His victim was a hitchhiker, a young man who trusted him, unaware of the fate that awaited. The act itself revealed the terrifying duality of Dahmer's mind: violence intertwined with a desire for possession. He did not merely kill. He sought control, an unnatural need to dominate and preserve the victim in ways that would satisfy a deeply rooted obsession. After this first murder, he attempted to bury the evidence, physically and psychologically, yet the hunger, the compulsion, only grew stronger with time. The 1980s saw him moving to Milwaukee, renting apartment after apartment, each a private theater for his escalating crimes. By day, he appeared ordinary, a polite, quiet man, working at the Ambrosia chocolate factory, shopping in local stores, nodding politely to neighbors. By night, he enacted horrors that defied imagination. Dahmer targeted vulnerable men, luring them with promises of money, alcohol, or companionship. Once inside, he would drug them, ensuring their compliance. The murders were calculated, meticulously executed, revealing a chilling patience and intelligence. Bodies were dismembered, parts preserved in jars, and photographs taken, a personal archive of death. His ability to blend into the community was remarkable. Neighbors described him as friendly, polite, and inconspicuous. This stark contrast between his outward normalcy and the atrocities within his apartment created a tension that would later captivate investigators and the public alike. The horror was compounded by how close authorities came to discovering him on several occasions, only for mistakes, miscommunications, or simple oversight to allow him to continue. Dahmer's first real brushes with law enforcement were not connected to his murders. He was occasionally stopped for minor incidents, complaints about strange behavior, or public intoxication. Yet each time, he charmed, deflected, or simply avoided suspicion. He perfected the art of hiding in plain sight, turning ordinary appearances into a shield against detection. By the late 1980s, the pattern of disappearances began to form. Young men vanished, often with little notice. Families reported missing loved ones, yet investigations were fragmented. Many of the victims were marginalized: men of color, individuals involved in transient lifestyles, or those without strong family support, making their disappearances less likely to trigger immediate urgency. Dahmer's selection of victims was strategic, exploiting society's blind spots to continue his spree with impunity. Throughout these years, Dahmer's personal life remained superficially normal. He maintained jobs, apartment leases, and a social facade. He would occasionally invite neighbors in, engage in casual conversations, and participate in mundane routines. To the casual observer, he was unremarkable, invisible even. This juxtaposition, ordinary man by day, serial killer by night, would become one of the most haunting elements of his story, demonstrating how evil can exist in plain sight, hidden behind the mask of normality. It was not until 1991 that Dahmer's reign of terror finally came to an end. Christopher Hughes, one of his intended victims, managed to escape and alert the police. When officers entered Dahmer's apartment, they were met with a scene that would shock even the most experienced investigators. Photographs of dismembered victims lined the walls. Human remains were preserved in jars, carefully organized and labeled. The evidence revealed a meticulous pattern of murders spanning over a decade. The scale and organization of Dahmer's crimes were unprecedented, exposing a methodical cruelty that had been hidden in plain sight for years. The city of Milwaukee, and indeed the entire nation, was horrified. Media coverage exploded, labeling him the Milwaukee Cannibal and the Milwaukee Monster. Public fascination collided with revulsion as reporters dissected every detail, turning real suffering into sensational headlines. Survivors' families were thrust into the spotlight, forced to relive trauma repeatedly, as the nation attempted to comprehend how such evil could thrive undetected. Dahmer's trial in 1992 became a spectacle. The courtroom was packed with journalists, relatives, and ordinary citizens desperate to understand the incomprehensible. Dahmer appeared calm, emotionless, almost unnervingly detached. Psychologists debated his sanity, his capacity for remorse, and the nature of his compulsions. The prosecution painted a picture of a man driven by obsession, compulsion, and a pathological desire for control, while the defense argued mental illness. Each testimony, each photograph, each recounting of horror gripped the public, keeping them both horrified and fascinated. The jury eventually delivered a guilty verdict on multiple counts of murder, resulting in hundreds of years of imprisonment. Yet, even after the verdict, questions lingered. How could a man commit so many atrocities without detection? How did the systems fail to prevent him? How could the ordinary facade conceal such monstrous deeds? These questions kept the public engaged and horrified, contributing to the story's lasting impact. Dahmer's life behind bars was marked by isolation and occasional attention. He was monitored carefully, yet continued to draw public and media scrutiny. He gave interviews that revealed some insight into his psyche, sometimes expressing regret, at other times maintaining a detached perspective. In 1994, his life ended violently at the hands of another inmate, a poetic yet chilling reflection of the cycle of violence that had defined his existence. The legacy of Jeffrey Dahmer extends far beyond his crimes. His story is a cautionary tale about human fragility, societal blind spots, and the darkness that can thrive in seemingly ordinary places. Families grieve not only for the victims, but also for the failures that allowed such acts to continue. Cities remember the fear. Psychologists study the pathology. True crime enthusiasts revisit the narrative endlessly, attempting to understand the duality of ordinary appearance and hidden evil. What makes Dahmer's case uniquely chilling is the contrast between normalcy and monstrosity. He was a man who could walk past anyone on the street, smile politely, work alongside coworkers, and participate in everyday life, all while orchestrating horrors behind closed doors. The story forces us to confront an unsettling truth, that evil does not always hide in shadows or abandoned buildings. Sometimes, it lives among us, masked by the mundane. Even decades later, the story resonates. It challenges us to consider how many warning signs were missed, how societal biases allowed the selection of marginalized victims, and how one man could exploit trust, routine, and oversight to commit crimes on such a scale. It serves as both a study in human psychology and a warning that the ordinary faces around us may conceal unimaginable darkness. Jeffrey Dahmer's story is more than a chronicle of murder. It is a reflection on society, morality, and human vulnerability. It is a reminder that vigilance, empathy, and awareness are critical, not just for law enforcement, but for communities. It highlights the consequences of ignorance, indifference, and the failure to protect the most vulnerable. The haunting truth lingers. monsters do not always appear monstrous. They can smile, chat, nod politely, and blend into society. The danger lies in the unnoticed, the familiar, the ordinary. Dahmer's crimes remain a stark illustration of how evil can coexist with normalcy, how secrecy can thrive amidst routine, and how darkness can lurk where we least expect it. Even today, the fascination with Jeffrey Dahmer continues. His story is retold, analyzed, and dissected, not for glorification, but for understanding, caution, and reflection. His crimes serve as a chilling reminder of the fragility of safety, the vulnerability of trust, and the capacity for evil to hide in plain sight. And perhaps the most unsettling truth of all is that such evil, though rare, can exist anywhere, even behind the most ordinary faces.